Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Oklahoma Venture Forum podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Golding, CEO of the Golden Group. I am joined today by Drew Hendricks, Regional Engagement Principal in the Oklahoma City market for NSIN. That's the National Security Innovation Network. He's going to be our September 2023 Power Lunch speaker, the first of this new session in 2023-2024 that will be in a new location, the Metro Tech Spring Lake campus. So make sure that you guys go to the OVF.org website to get all the details of that. But we'll be discussing in September VC-style funding from the DoD, the Department of Defense, to potentially dual-use small companies. This is Drew's specialty. So quickly, Drew, I'm going to introduce what NSIN is and then introduce yourself and tell us what you do there and what we'll be discussing in September. So the NSIN, the National Security Innovation Network, is an unrivaled problem-solving network in the U.S. Department of Defense that adapts to the emerging needs of those who serve in the defense of our national security. Dedicated to the work of bringing together defense, academic, and entrepreneurial innovators to solve national security problems in new ways. This is perfect for the Oklahoma Venture Forum. Welcome to the podcast, Drew. Introduce yourself, and let's talk a little bit about NSIN.
Thanks, Kyle. Appreciate it. My name is, as you said, Drew Hendricks. I am with the National Security Innovation Network. We also call it NSIN. It's one of those acronyms we like to pronounce. But yes, NSIN. Something I just want to put out there for myself. I am a contractor. So I work for the group called CMI2, another group I can introduce at another time. And our client is NSIN. I just say that just to put it out there that I myself am not a government employee. But to say is we work closely with our regional director, who is one. So I'll explain how that works, maybe probably at the lunch, and we won't dive deep in the administrative weeds there. But that's just for some legal purposes and make sure that was stated. But so what NSIN is, and there's a lot of new. You said new location, new season, same with NSIN. NSIN is new to this region, right? So when I say region, I'm going to use a couple different terms there, but we call it the Oklahoma spoke, right? So for us, that includes also Arkansas, even for New Mexico, they're a group we haven't really moved into, but the spoke is in Oklahoma City. We're one of the newest spokes to NSIN. So there are 34 different locations across the country. And basically the government employees, NSIN as a large organization, has been picking different areas to move into as the entrepreneurship, academic research, the things that we're looking for start to flourish and grow. So they've seen the growth in Oklahoma City. They saw it about 2 years ago, and they've been working to get someone into this position. And they hired me out of the University of Oklahoma this past July. So it's almost been this past August. It's been about a year. Actually, I think just a little over a year that I've been in this position. A little bit about myself. I came from the University of Oklahoma's startup programs. I helped create those programs, the student experiential programs at the University of Oklahoma. Did a lot of that for about 4 years. And before that, though, I was a strategic communication operations specialist with the Marine Corps. Some of us heard of us as public affairs, combat correspondence, those sorts of things. What I did actually was advertising for the Marine Corps' recruiting command here in this region. And then I went on to finish out my education, both at OU and then the University of Southern California. So it's interesting to say those two back to back with all the they don't anymore. I make the joke that I can't wear my USC gear outside the house, so which is fine. Exactly. But back to NSIN. So they brought me in mainly because, again, the goals of the regional engagement principals like myself, and again, I have colleagues all over the country. We interact with both our academic network participants and then our venture network participants. NSIN has two portfolios, venture and talent. Talent is everything academic. So that's looking for talented researchers, students who may join a DoD lab someday in the future. And then venture is working with anybody, as it sounds, that might be working on a small company. We work with companies 500 employees or less to bring about new and nascent talent to what we call the DoD innovation ecosystem, right? You heard me say things like participant rather than partner. Partner means something very strong in the DoD. So we say network participants because that's what NSIN is. It is a network. It's more of a product than a group of people. That is to say, hey, come and get involved with what we're doing. And once you're an NSIN alum, it becomes easier and easier to connect you with DoD programming, whether we control it or not. So NSIN has our own programming, but most of what we're doing is facilitating connections between what we call solution providers to our DoD mission partners who provide the problems. So our customer is actually the DoD mission partner. So whether that be units at Tinker, Vance, Kirtland Air Force Base in New Mexico, everything down in Texas, all across the country. NSIN reps work with our DoD mission partners very closely to identify key problems that they have and they want to see them sourced, right? Whether that's with a capstone class at a university where they take it on for a semester or two. They can also do programs called Maker, which we provide prototyping funding for those same kind of student research groups, or also just professor research groups to actually get a prototype out to the place or out into the market. Where that happens, though, what's interesting there is eventually the venture side will take over, right? So we actually encourage whoever's working on that project to keep going forward. Even if it's the student, it's great to do the research. It's great to build a prototype. Who's going to make this saying, sell it, and do it over and over and over and over again? So NSIN's been around, I think, about 6, 7 years. I want to say 6. Let's just go with 7. We'll stick with 7. It's been around for about 7 years, and it's gone through some changes. And most recently in March, we changed again. We used to be under the Undersecretary of Defense for Research and Research and Engineering. Well, the SecDef has seen NSIN and DIU as much more important, and so they've pulled them up to his office. So we are right underneath the Office of the Secretary of Defense, and we work with another group called the Defense Innovation Unit. They're actually going to be taking over, not taking over, it's the wrong way to say it. They're going to be officially linked to us because our work is kind of the same. So we'll start, if you're not familiar with TRL, so TR levels, it's readiness levels. It's kind of like, think of it as seed. Where are you, right? Are you nascent? Are you early stage? Are you seed? This is more of a technical term. So obviously technical readiness levels. TRL 0, brand new idea. We wrote it on a napkin. We're not even sure what we're going to do with it yet. Up to about 4 or 5, think college kind of rubric level, right? Like, hey, we're starting to get it systematic. Maybe we've done a sprint or two and we're really trying to get things ready to go. We have it mocked up. The science is good. The engineering is good, but we haven't prototyped it. Once you start going to 5 and beyond, now you're starting to put stuff into the field. So NSIN does everything from TRL 0 to about 6 or 7. And after that, it goes to Defense Innovation Unit because we're doing what's called transition. So as you can see, I'm walking you through the pipeline of NSIN, right? Once you get into transition, you really are talking about you all, the Oklahoma Venture Forum. We're talking about entrepreneurs who actually want to take, whether it's an IP generated out of a DoD lab that we hand over to you. We have a program for that. Or if it's a DoD partnered lab from a university that also produces IP that we want to see made, we'll work with entrepreneurs and literally say, hey, we have this. Who wants to do something with it? So there's a couple different programs like that. So that's all underneath the venture and transition sale portfolio. A lot of our work starts with the academic side, right? But that's to encourage and grow talent right here at home. So if NSIN actually is interested in helping states and organizations find and keep talent, right? Because we want to source it from you, right? We want to see what Oklahoma has, what Oklahoma has to offer. So we could drill down a little bit. I don't want to go too off in a bunch of different directions, but basically why now, right? So the new portion, like I said, NSIN, DIU, hey, what's Oklahoma doing? It's a black dot on our radar as to like what they have available and what they could bring to the DoD innovation ecosystem, right? So again, we're about solving our mission partners' problems. And it's not just giving the problem to whom we like, it's finding the best in class or world-class institutions, skills, abilities, research, facilities, all that stuff to take on specific problems. So we're already doing that now. We're working with OU and OSU, working with OSU quite a bit, actually, and eventually TU as well, to bring in more research dollars, right, and innovation dollars from the DoD to use like their specific capabilities. So OSU, it's obviously our counter UAS and advanced air mobility through OAir, and a lot of the research they're able to do. In OU, it's going to be through their advanced radar research center, a lot of their advanced sensors. So we pick what's best, right? It's not just throw it at the wall and see what sticks. We find what you're really good at, and we find a place for you to like live. And most of the time it's finding the unit that has need of you and putting them in contact with you. A lot of times it's just market discovery. Can you solve this problem? And so NSIN, like you said, is here to see what Oklahoma has best. And as a rep, I'm from Oklahoma. So for me, I take it personally to showcase what Oklahoma's best at so that we don't get lost, right? We don't want to become just another black dot or, hey, cool, they do some stuff. That's nice. I want it to be seen as it's starting to be seen as a place to really come and flourish, right? Hey, we have really good talent. We have lots of really, I think what's the new slogan for Oklahoma? Imagine that, right? I always thought that it should be better. A better one would just be, It's just like, because it's imagine that, it's what it is. But most of the time it is, you didn't know that about Oklahoma. So I definitely have it's in my heart to like put the best foot forward for Oklahoma. And I just happy to be doing it for the benefit of national security and to help those service members get the best technology and solutions they possibly can to, one, it's more about defense now, right? It's about being able to resist or keep conflict from happening, but also we want to make sure, should we have to fight, not that we want to, should we have to fight, we have the skills, abilities, and tools to do it. So we can drill down a little bit more if any particular one of those questions or topics is interesting.
It makes perfect sense that it kind of dovetails into what Oklahoma has traditionally done well and what they've been focusing on for the last 5 or 10 years and aspects of innovation. Obviously, our bases have always been have been important to us, but now unmanned aerial and all of the things that come with it that dovetail into agriculture and manufacturing, which we've always been really good at here in the state. But what's interesting to me is typically those of us in the private sector, when we hear government, we think of something that is very slow, very sluggish, tons of regulation, just slow. Yep. And what you're talking about is innovation and speed. So, and this is a new approach, like you said, like 7 years or less that it's been this approach. So if you also mentioned venture and talent, and in the room at the OVF meeting you'll be presenting at will be nothing but venture and talent. So how do those people in the room, or when they decide if they're going to even show up or not, if they're venture or talent or both, what do they need to know about? This is not that traditional slow slogging bog of government, but fast, innovative, and a real partnership, not necessarily just a single contract.
Yeah, this is actually great. I'm going to spend a little time here because it's part of telling the story is the culture, right? And I think a lot of people, this is where the crusty old veteran in me is going to get kind of grumpy at like people for not understanding how their military works. And that sounds pretty aggressive, but let me take a step back. And what I mean is like the distinctions a lot of people don't make. Like one, the DoD, Department of Defense, right? That is the civilian run organization. Like a lot of people want to lump like the Marine Corps, right? So I was a former Marine. The Marine Corps is a service branch, right? And it is under the DoD and a part of the DoD, but it's not the DoD. Does that make sense? A lot of people think of, if I talk to this unit commander, I've talked to the DoD. No, you've talked to that unit commander, and they have a mission set that could be in alignment with what you're trying to do or not. But the Department of Defense is run by the SecDef and is a lot of civilians, right? So our procurement and contracting, all that stuff could be service member, could be civilian, but the DoD is that civilian run organization. So a lot of times we'll be saying DoD when we really mean a service component, which is like the Army, the Marine Corps, so on and so forth. And why is that distinction important? Because a lot of times when I worked at the startup programs and we'd have VCs or visiting people, giving advice to the students on what they should do. And one of my favorites is you'll always hear, oh, that sounds like a DoD play. And what I hear is, I don't know what to do with the information you're giving me. I don't know where else to send you. So I'm going to send you to someone I think has a lot of money, right? Because that's usually what they mean. And the DoD may have a big budget, but that budget is allocated to hundreds and if not thousands of components and units and directorates and all that stuff. And so a lot of times you all be looking at your customer, Tinker, right? When you really need to be talking to someone else, right? You need to be talking farther up the chain, right? Tinker Air Force Base is great. And I know that they produce a lot of problems and they've got a lot of work to be done, but they're a sustainment command, not necessarily an innovation command. So they don't hold the innovation dollars. They can request them, they can get them for certain things, but it's actually their group up in Wright-Patterson, where their higher headquarters is, that has the kind of has the people actually assigned to do this type of innovation work. Now you're seeing it across the DoD. There I'm using the general DoD because this is every service is doing it. Basically, some have billets for it, some have actual MOSs for it, but it's innovation officers. Their whole goal is to just go and source and find solutions that move quicker than they can. Right. To your point, the DoD itself, it's not something we try to hide behind. It's not even something we push back against. Like, yes, the process is slow, and it has been. And that's out of a lot of history there, right? World War II. Why after World War II, hey, let's slow this down. Let's get control of it. Let's make sure there's no fraud, waste, and abuse. All those things have been here. But now we're entering into a new era with peer competitors, which is something I think even like I'm 37. So I know my generation's never lived up until 2 years ago in an era where we had peer competitors. It was all near peer. And a lot of people don't recognize how big of a distinction that is for the US government to come out and say these groups, these countries are peer competitors to us, meaning they can match us in a lot of different ways. And so there is an urgent need, much like back in the day. Now, not a World War II, we have to fight this tomorrow sort of thing, but we don't want to get caught flat-footed when it comes to technology, and specifically not just technology, but the talent that produces it. And so we've sped things up by creating these types of organizations, specifically Defense Innovation Unit, and then NSIN as a subset of that, being basically the forward-leaning arm of that, the group that comes out here and talks to you and tells you how we can get connected. So things are moving quickly. So, for instance, we have a thing called Propel, and Propel EDIs. There might be one coming to Oklahoma City soon. They'll say like Propel New York. The geography doesn't matter. That's just where it's being based out of. And what will happen is we'll work with a command. So we just did one recently with SOCOM, so Special Operations Command, and they're like, "Hey, we need this stuff." And so they put down a list of everything that they are looking for in these key areas. Like, hey, we're looking for something for counter UAS. Hey, we're looking for something for sensors. And it's broad, but then it's broad enough to be within a category, right? And then underneath there, it says, hey, if you have any abilities within these areas, you should apply. And I tell entrepreneurs all the time, they really mean that. It doesn't mean like this and this thing only is what you should apply for. It's, if you don't do this for us right now, like say you've never done a DoD contract, but you're amazing at sensors and it says they're looking for sensors, you should apply. And in fact, we're looking for you more than we're looking for the regular contractor. So I'm not going to speak too much or speak ill of any primes or contractors or anything. It's too easy, right? It's too easy to say that kind of stuff, even as a contractor. But what it is we can't have everything locked up in the big boys, right? Or the big entities. Sure. What happens when they go out of business? What happens when they own all of our IP? We can't move.
And the bigger they are, the slower they are.
Exactly, right? And because they're used to these processes. And so it's not about pushing them out or getting rid of anybody. It's what are we not addressing? What are we not taking advantage of? Why aren't we talking to the 24-year-old college grad who made something amazing inside the fabrication lab and is actually now running a business with it? And if he just has somebody to help him through the extended valley of death that is DoD procurement, he's just going to fall off, or he'll just get sucked into commercial and never do anything. Now, or never do anything for us, or we'll have to pay big bucks on the back end, right? Like trying to get a Google to work with you after they're a Google rather than before is it can be challenging. And for us, this is speaking directly to venture, right? Is we want to be able to trust you all. Right. We want to be able to know that there's due diligence. This is why you'll see on LinkedIn, and I encourage people to go follow us on LinkedIn because NSIN actually is pretty active there. And the DoD innovation ecosystem is also very active. So you can learn from a lot of people very quickly. But you're starting to hear even from higher retired generals and things like, and this isn't NSIN speaking, but this is just other people speaking. Hey, we need to move quicker. We need to be acting a little like VCs. We need to be picking winners, right? Which is something brand new to that system of, hey, fair contracting, which we still do. None of that's been jettisoned. But the idea is, hey, why can't we be more targeted? Why wait for this stuff to come to us when we can go to them and say, hey, I specifically need this? So in a lot of ways, we're acting like a VC, but also a much more aggressive customer, meaning we know what we want and we're going to go look for it. One of my colleagues said that 10% of what we do right now is show me what you've got. Right? Like you coming to us and say, hey, DoD, I have this wonderful widget. You should buy it. That's not how it works. Most of the time it's, we have this need. Can you solve it? Right? It is direct to a need we have requests. So NSIN, all of our programming is backed by a DoD project. If the DoD mission partner doesn't see it as a problem, we don't mess with it because they're the customer. So that's why we don't.
Which makes it a safer venture. It's safer for venture if they know that they're solving a problem as opposed to having to build a widget and find someone to buy it. Yeah, that's a much better opportunity for the venture or for talent, even if they invest their time, money, and risk because they already have a customer who's asking for that.
So a great example is like the Propel, right? So SOCOM is going to bring up a bunch of ventures, right, who said that they can do this. And I think Propel is, I want to say 6 weeks, but it might be longer. Some of the numbers get fuzzy, but it's like an accelerator program. And what they do is we make sure to connect you with DoD partners like the one you're talking to so that you can do market discovery and find your product market fit. And at the end of it, you pitch to that DoD mission partner. So you'll pitch to the commanders for SOCOM about what you have. And again, you're not responding to a grant that says make these specifications. It's show us your capabilities within this area. And you get a chance to do that. And we also bring VCs on the line too. So that the VC can hear the general or the colonel say, yes, I need that, start making it now, right? Now don't come expecting that exact scenario every time, right? But that's the point, is to, much like an accelerator program would put you in front of VCs or your customer help, we do the same thing. It's just ours is some unit organization like SOCOM. We're working a lot with the combatant commands. So that's UCOM, NORTHCOM, lots of acronyms out there, but they're the bigger groups. Then again, that falls down to their units at a lower level. But we also help Tinker and Vance. We're working on projects with Vance right now. And we actually help teach them how to do more innovation. So we put them through a thing called boot camp, where we're wildly creative over here. So we put them through boot camp, and that's can be spread across, but it's training where they learn to basically do lean startup methodology. Sometimes they do it on their own problem sets. Other times it's the train the trainer model. We teach them how to think through this, so that also when they encounter you and work with you all in some of these programs, they're better suited to keep pace, right? So it's not just asking you all to change or even just changing our speed. It is creating innovation officers, creating innovation units. The Marine Corps has an innovation unit. The Army has an innovation unit. The Army has its own group called SoftWorks that they produce their own apps. Like, it's a full stack development group that anybody who's enlisted, if you're a service member, you can basically apply to go there and work as a full stack developer working on internal DoD problems. So we're trying to solve our own problems. We're trying to educate people in innovation thinking. And you're finding those talents are just as important as the trigger pullers. Now grunts, like, I know that somewhere there's a grunt that just like wants to come after me for saying that. But the point is, I'll actually, one of my favorite anecdotes, go watch one of the Marine Corps' newest commercials, for recruitment commercials. There are more Marines with controllers in their hands than rifles, right? Drones. I mean, it's everything, because we know who we're talking to and we know what their future of their fight's going to look like. So when I don't want to pump up entrepreneurs more than they already get pumped up a lot, but really is a challenge to say, hey, what do you have? And can you meet these needs? Can you come here and work with us? And we're not just keeping you an arm's distance and waiting for you to hit all these milestones and waiting for you to get your SAM number. NSIN's like, no, come over here. I'll introduce you so that you can, with confidence, as you said, move through what we know is an extended valley of death. And we work mass challenges to bring funding, right? Like, hey, that Propel comes with a reward at the end. If you get selected, you get some money to keep going, because again, we want you to keep going, right? It's not just, so like, I'll give you an example too of like why things like this fail. So Vance Air Force Base trains air traffic controllers. They have to wear MOP gear, that is protective gear from biological and chemical warfare. They have to wear that one in the field if they actually need it, but also in training so they can just get used to doing it. Well, a gas mask makes it very difficult to talk to an aircraft if you're an air traffic controller. They used to have a company that made a voice emitter that would work inside. Well, they went out of business. So now what do? Right? So very quickly, they got to find a solution. So we're starting with the talent side. We're going to put them through the OU fabrication lab. We're going to have students work on this problem and develop a prototype, right? Students develop a prototype in the capstone, maybe even maker, get something off the line. Well, now they've made it. Now what? The next thing we would do is go, well, hey, which company wants to take this on? Maybe there's a student company that wants to do it, or maybe there's an Oklahoma Venture Forum that goes, wait, hey, hold on, I have the manufacturing capabilities to do that. Well, now we help you work with OU to get that IP, maybe through an MOU or an EPA with OU in the unit, because it's in our best interest and even OU's best interest to get that out to the market, get it made and created. So not only are we partnering or helping out the DoD innovation ecosystem, we want to help out the ecosystems that we're operating in, right? How do we connect these groups? How do we connect accelerators to VCs that are interested in DoD innovation? Because the biggest thing for us is we want dual use. I don't want you to make a widget for me and only me. And then what happens when I don't give you the contract next year? What happens if something goes down? You go out of business, and now years of IP and research and expertise just goes away. And that's something we don't want to happen. So we also love to see, some people are like, well, I never made this for the DoD. I never considered it. Perfect. It means you have a market elsewhere, and we might have a use for it. So a lot of times I'll tell students and stuff too, you don't need to make DoD your sole vertical to be useful to us. In fact, we're going to look at you a little warier if you're like, oh no, I only work for you all. I only want to work with DoD. Great. But that's just not the reality anymore, right? We need companies that are going to have lasting effects. Otherwise, like I said, we jettison years of IP, years of research, years of experience, just because you did what every entrepreneur tells you to do. So don't go down that rabbit hole so fast.
Plus, being in the market will force
Yes,
innovation that then could be folded back into what they're doing for DoD.
exactly.
So it's a great philosophy to move forward with. This is going to be the perfect conversation to launch our 2023-2024 session for the Oklahoma Venture Forum because it combines so many things: innovation, new way of thinking, of course, venture and talent all at the same time. So I can't wait for everyone to get in the room here. So make sure that you show up September 13th. 11:30 to 1. Remember, we're having a new location this year. It's the Metro Tech Spring Lake campus. All the information, in case you forget, is at ovf.org. But make sure to be there September 13th to hear Drew Hendricks, Regional Engagement Principal for the Oklahoma City region for our NSIN, the National Security Innovation Network. I predict right now you're going to get a ton of Q&A and a lot of people queuing up after you're finished speaking to have even deeper conversations. So make sure you guys are in the room so that you can ask questions of Drew during his presentation on September 13th. And I'm going to end with this, Drew, since you're a veteran. I'd like to thank you for your
Appreciate
service.
it. Thank you very much, Kyle. We'll say anybody wants to hit me up on LinkedIn between now and then, please do. My job is to have these conversations now. So I'm happy to communicate even before the forum, after the forum, during, whichever. And just so you give you, what am I going to talk about at the forum? Because you asked what details on all the programs I listed. Right, we're going to walk through, hey, here's what we do, here's where we're located, here's how you can get a hold of us, and what we're currently trying to work on. So hopefully I have a couple of mass challenges to bring at you all too. But definitely follow NSIN on LinkedIn because, again, we're a national network. Though you're working with me, if you end up working for a mission partner on the West Coast, you're going to work with my colleague out there who's going to connect you with those. So you're talking to one of us, you get to talk to all of us because, again, we pull from our DoD mission partners, and those are, of course, scattered across the globe. So happy to meet with you all. Really looking forward to it. Definitely need to see more venture. Would love to see some Oklahoma companies doing great things for our national security. So thank you, Kyle.
Perfect. We'll see everyone September 13th.